let's talk about annotations. The first thing I wanted to talk about was my annotation pouch. This basically has all the things that I need to annotate on the go. Let's go through what I keep inside of it. I was going to say this is the most important part, but really it's something that you don't actually need. It's more if you want to. So it's annotation tabs. I personally love annotation tabs, and I think they're really fun and add a lot of life to the books. Here's an example of the annotations with tabs. I think it just adds a lot of personality, and you can theme it to match your books. You can also color coordinate like this, so you can use each tab for a different color. I personally don't do that because I've done that before and it just wasn't really my thing. But if it's yours, go for it. I would definitely try both and see what you like more. The first thing you really need are pens. I really like the Energel pens. I think they write really smoothly and just add a lot of character to my books because they come in a bunch of different colors. Preferably you do want 0.5 or something smaller because the margins of books aren't that large. Sometimes you can get away with a bigger one. I would say the biggest ones I use are 0.7 because 10 or I guess 1 is way too big. You can also use pens to underline if you want to, so really you only need a pen to start annotations. Another thing that could be seen as a necessity are highlighters. I really like to use the friction pens because they are erasable, and because of that, I feel like they don't bleed as much. I also sometimes use Tombows. Here's an example right here. These ones, it's 50-50 for me. Sometimes if I press too hard, they will bleed through, but usually they're pretty good as well. Another thing you might want to use is a pencil. I personally don't use pencils that much when I'm annotating, but sometimes I want to put a little doodle and want to draw it out first before I actually finalize it. I almost forgot to mention that sometimes I add bookmarks to my annotation kit, and I usually end up putting the tabs on those so that they're just readily accessible in my books. Okay, I think that wraps up all the annotation supplies you might need, so let's get into actually annotating. I'm first going to start off with just showing a few examples, and then we're going to annotate the first chapter of a book. One book that was really fun to annotate was Fahrenheit 451. This is a classic, so obviously with a classic you can kind of expect more meaningful quotes, I guess. I don't know how to put it, but I just feel like I find more quotes that I can relate to. So here's an example of a quote. He shaped the world. He did things to the world. The world was bankrupt of 10 million fine actions the night he passed on. I really like this quote, so I decided to preserve it forever by highlighting it. So that's one thing that you can do with annotations. In 5 Total Strangers, I used annotations to track the story and plot what I thought was going to happen. I ended up being wrong, but it is cool to look back and see what I thought might happen throughout the book. I also used annotation tabs to tab parts of the book that I felt were important to look back on. Okay, enough said about examples. Now we're going to move on to annotating the first chapter of The Book Thief.